How powerful is affirmations for what you've seen in your practice for clients?
I like to do questioning
Mm.
affirmations, which is you ask yourself a question such as, why am I able to notice more and more that I'm so loved? Why am I able to notice more and more that things are becoming easier and easier for me? And because we are a question and answering machine, we are the original Google search, it's nice to be able to give your brain a question and then it'll generate its own reasons for it. So that's really, really wonderful. Affirmations are, for sure, they're great, and I absolutely use them. There was a point in time where when I would say mine, it basically told me that I was full of baloney. So they were not having that same
Hmm.
impact on me, even though I would say them and however I would say them. So I really think it is very personable and personal how people go about wanting to navigate their own inner world. Affirmations can be a phenomenal source.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. I'm your co host, Andy McDowell, founder and owner of Generate Your Value, providing self leadership, and business coaching services for corporate executives and business owners.
And I'm Zach Levy, your other co-host. I run a nationwide financial service business with my wife, Megan.
Together, Zach and I have the intention to bring you tips, concepts, ideas, suggestions, stories, and analogies from A to Z, which will help you to grow your personal brand and leadership skills in such a way that joy, happiness, and success, as you define it for yourself, are achieved.
We hope to use our gifts, talents, and experiences in business and leadership to generate value in your life. And with that being said, let's move to our topic for today. Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Levy. Been out for a couple episodes, but it's so good to be back. Andy, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you.
So I am alive and well.
Without classes. Without
Right.
classes. I
So
mean,
everybody else, at least for the time we've known each other, well beyond that, it's been glasses. Now it's a whole new face, I'm told. So,
yeah, so for listening audience, Zach just had LASIK surgery, and I got George Michael with the song "Freedom"
right?
ringing in my head. You know.
Hey, it makes it a lot easier to ride the bike in the wintertime without glasses. So, no fogging.
Yeah, less expensive and less having to keep track of something,
Yep.
right?
So, but no, just excited to be back for sure.
All right, so we got a great episode lined up for you today. We're bringing in a kindred spirit. Hopefully, by the time at the end of this conversation, you're feeling kind of inspired. If not, we haven't done our job today. It's kind
Right?
of the way that I'm seeing it today. But our guest today is Lenora Edwards. She comes to us from the great state of Pennsylvania. Not quite sure if it's Go Eagles or Go Steelers, but maybe we'll find that out later on in the conversation. But anyway, as I typically do, let me read the Lenora's bio, and then we'll bring her in and have a wonderful conversation. So Lenora Edwards, widely known as the Voice Lady, uniquely combines her clinical expertise and various certifications, empowering individuals to communicate powerfully from within so that they show up confidently in all areas of their life. Lenora's approach fosters genuine, effective self-expression, paving the way for individuals to lead the life they envision. For over a decade, as the founder of DTB Horizons, Lenora has been helping people break free from unproductive communication patterns, transforming internal barriers into external confidence and clarity. So with that being said, Lenora, welcome to the podcast.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. I like how you said the song that you were singing in your head, Andy.
Yeah.
For me, the song that I'm singing for Zach is "I Can See
Yeah,
I can
Clearly
see
Now."
clearly now. There you go. There you go.
So very awesome. How are you guys doing today?
fantastic.
Doing great. Doing great.
Great.
So
Very glad to hear that.
our conversation for the listening audience today, Lenora brings kind of a unique approach to it because to this kind of inspirational, what's my why, what kind of life am I going to create for myself kind of conversation. So kind of our questions are going to kind of focus on that slant or that pathway to achieving that mindset, that intentionality, and in that direction. But Lenora, Zach and I are big believers in the power of storytelling. We always like to lead off
Very
our
much so.
conversation with giving you an opportunity for 5 or 10 minutes to dive in and tell us and our listening audience a little bit about your life story and how it is that you got to where you are today.
I love that. Thank you so much for that welcoming. I was recently had a TEDx speech that I was telling about Andy last Thursday. And in that speech, it goes into a bit about how I got to this point. I don't know about you guys. Self-talk is something that is incredibly important to me. And I didn't realize just how important it really is. We spend so much time in our head, and what we say to ourselves really does matter. And there was once point in my life that I was struggling significantly with horrendous self-talk. It was awful, the things that were going on in my head and the anxiety that I was experiencing. And a bit more was things that were going on within me were leading to other things. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to manage all that was going on. And I actually had an eating disorder that was spiraling drastically out of control for a very long time. And I hid it for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until I was getting my second false tooth while I was sitting in the dentist chair, because of the things that I was going through, I needed a second false tooth. And at the end of that appointment, I thought, maybe there's something you just don't know yet. And I'm somebody who has always loved the personal development, being able to learn from other people, reading books, reading blogs, watching videos, love all of that. But it wasn't enough for me. It wasn't able to help recalibrate my self-talk enough that I was able to stop this eating disorder spiral that I was stuck in. And when I started to reach out to professionals and understand more about how to really talk to yourself, how to really get those changes so that you can feel the difference, that's when everything changed. Because it's one thing to say, I'm happy, healthy, and wealthy 300 times. But if you have an internal voice that's going, you're a liar, you are an absolute liar, it's a different story. And that's a battle that a lot of people struggle with. Yeah.
So I have had a self-esteem journey all my life, so I absolutely know, at least in the theme perspective, what you were going through, because I had the same types of conversations going on in my head through my 20s, or at least mid-20s, before I got into therapy and started dealing with those areas. So one of the words that I constantly keep hearing in sort of this kind of field is the word trauma, right? So
Yeah.
generally speaking, when we hear the word trauma, we think of the trauma center down at the hospital, right? So somebody's been in a major accident, or some kind of major weather event occurred or something where they've been seriously injured, and so we put them in an ambulance, we take them to the hospital, to the trauma center to deal with the trauma of physical well-being. But in your line of what you do, how would you define the word trauma outside of the physical world?
I'm so glad you asked that question.
What kinds of things come to mind when you hear that word trauma with the clientele that you deal with?
Absolutely. So for me, the way that I look at trauma, and from the things that I've studied, trauma absolutely is being in an accident, or, these unthinkable acts of abuse and physical pain. Absolutely. People are experiencing trauma that way. There is also, we need to start reshaping the way that we define it. That's how our culture defines it. How our nervous system defines it is completely different. Our nervous system defines it as anything that is overwhelming to the nervous system, that it literally captures the information and then it stores it in our body. So the fun fact is our body's 100% memory. And as we're experiencing the world around us, our brain is constantly doing three things. It's deleting information, it's distorting information, and it's generalizing information. So when it comes to events that make us feel bad, such as getting yelled at, or even being, a great one is being in a fight. I feel like I'm not the only person that's ever been in a fight with somebody. When we're in a fight with somebody, we can get a familiar feeling. Sometimes we call it that sinking feeling in the pit of our stomach. When we get that feeling, that is literally our nervous system saying, here's where you store this information. And it's not just that one fight that you're in at the moment. It is every single fight that has made you feel this way in the past. So this compounds on itself. And that's why as you experience more fighting, that feeling gets stronger and stronger and you feel worse and worse. It's because your body remembers. And because your body has that information, what I do with my clients is I help them clear out that information. So understanding that your body's holding on to this, your memory captures it and it says, this is really important. We cannot forget about this. That's a great thing. We're designed that way. Thank goodness we are. This is how we learn to consistently run from animals. This is a great thing. What is difficult at times is truly allowing ourselves to process the emotion that we've experienced, which is, as we're starting to see in 2023, going into 2024, this emotional intelligence component is getting better. People are starting to really open up to the conversation about it, but how we clear it, how we resolve that information, of that trapped information that's inside us, is unique to each of us. And we are ultimately the only individual that can clear it and process it from our nervous system. So when you have an experience, it's not that you're forgiving that individual in that fight or you're forgiving that person that did something. What you are doing is you're taking the information that's stored in your body going, I get it. I don't have to agree with it, but I don't have to hold on to this pain. And that's where you get that separation, where people can start to literally feel better because they're not carrying around all this heavy, unprocessed emotional information.
So, and that's huge. I mean, just the fact of leading in with self-talk. I think we've all gone through a journey with self-talk, self-esteem, etc. I mean, I joke with people. One of my wife and I's main hobbies is bodybuilding. The reason I got into bodybuilding is because I didn't want to be short and skinny, because couldn't fix the short part. But no. So on the effect of trauma, right? The emotional trauma, EQ, everything. This is something that I've actually been digging into, studying with a mentor of mine for a long time. We go TBFAR. Thoughts lead to beliefs, lead to feelings, which leads to actions, which lead to your results. Right? How does trauma really affect that cycle in itself?
Trauma is, and I like to call it moments of overwhelm, because if you hear trauma, people, and even as I talk to the people that are close to me and I say the word trauma, they go, I don't have any trauma. And while that may be true to their definition of how they define trauma, how your nervous system, again, defines it is totally different. So if you think a moment of overwhelm, for example, if you had, let's say, sixth grade, you were up on stage and you had to say this part in your speech and you somehow messed it up and the entire class was looking at you and all these eyes are on you, that can be a moment of overwhelm to your nervous system, of which from there, you may never again want to speak in public because your nervous system took it as fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And because of that panic, because of that distress in your system at that moment, your nervous system quite literally captures all the information and holds on to it. So then when you want to go speak to someone, whether it's in public or you say you want to go ask somebody out on a date, if you can't have that ability to go up to somebody because you're literally held back by a feeling that is causing you stress and distress as you're going to do something, that's how it impacts you. It will not let you. Your nervous system is ultimately keeping you safe so that you don't feel that way again. Because in that moment when you were in sixth grade and everybody was looking at you, it was either capture the information or you die. That's how your nervous system views it. So that, I know that's kind of a simple example of being on stage and or talking to a class, but that's what it is in your nervous system. So then when you say, I don't like talking to people, there's
Right.
a reason. We need to go back and figure out that reason and help that part of you understand you're safe. It can let go of the intensity now.
It's like you said, it's a lot of
Yeah,
taking the time to actually process it. Yeah.
well, even with the processing, so I'm eternally grateful that this year. One of the things I accomplished this year was to work with a forgiveness coach, and
Wow.
it's through working with that coach that I got educated about how the body holds on to the traumas, because I've been through hours of therapy and reading self-help books and watching videos. And up here in the mind, I've cleared out all of the traumas, but that doesn't necessarily mean what I learned that the body has released all of that energy.
Yeah.
Because
And 5% of us,
there's different parts of the body that hold on to certain things. For me, it was in the liver, and that's where we did work with forgiveness to kind of release all that energy that's been in there for 40 plus years from that effort. Even though I cleared it out of the mind per se, in terms of mindset and beliefs and so forth, it doesn't mean that energy has been cleaned out from the rest of the body.
completely. And we know that we're 5% conscious and 95% subconscious. So when you're trying to fight a war in your head with 5% of you up against 95% of you, you can start to understand this is why people have a lot of difficulty. It makes sense. How can we help?
Yeah, so let's take me as an example. If we're looking at this belief, thought, emotions, behavior, actions kind of cycle, what I learned from therapy was that my relationship with my father created some beliefs that I had about myself, which created the negative self-talk in my head, which then led to emotions of anxiety, not good enough, was kind of inside myself, wasn't really outgoing in high school, college, etc., led to certain behaviors. If somebody is going through that same kind of cycle that's listening today, where is the first point of attack? Right? Are we looking to change behaviors first? Since that's kind of the feedback loop back into the beliefs. Is it straight at the beliefs with a machine gun, kind of thing, or what? Where is somebody going to start their efforts if they're truly going to take hold of this and say, I want a different life for myself? Where is the first point of attack in this cycle?
For me, I would think the first point would say, reflect on that. What do you think it is that you need? What is it that you want? Especially when you're having these conversations with yourself and you're talking to if people say, oh, I'm talking to my subconscious. Ultimately, your subconscious responds it's the first voice that you hear. It speaks the softest. You want to edit it, and you're going to feel like you're making it up. These are the hallmarks of the subconscious. So if you think, okay, I want to change, how might I start? What's the first thing that comes up? What's the next thing that comes up? What's the third thing? And write down 3 possible solutions that may start to work for you. Oftentimes when people come in and work with me, I'll say, okay, well, what brought you to talk to me today? What's important to you about why we're having this conversation? And as they start to talk, and because I'm listening very carefully for certain things and I start to drill down to their values and their criteria, what's important to them, how do they know what's important to them? And if they're telling me whatever it is that they may be telling me, let's say I'm talking to myself in a critical way. Okay, how do you know? As you keep talking to them, they're telling you what they're experiencing, how they're experiencing it, and as we keep going, we often get back to that core moment of when that event occurred. And it can be as when we're little and we're young and we have an authority figure talking to us, or even an authority figure yelling at us, or even a moment of overwhelm of being in a fight with other kids and not understanding it. We often think, oh, children are resilient. And yes, that is true. But they're still getting impacted at these early moments. And a lot of the work that people do whether it comes to personal development or therapy or, doing a variety of self-care things, ultimately, it is you coming back to you to take care of you and help you. And however you want to label it, that's ultimately what's happening, because you are the only one that can get you to change. You are the only one that is going to get you to where you want to go. And when you can understand it's between me and me, okay, I get that.
And I do think it's different for everybody where they start, and I love that you kind of, in long story form, start with why it's that way, right? Always start with why. We've talked about that so many times. So just solidifying everything, it's awesome. But
It's the power of the word,
it
right?
is why. Just that was actually what was big for me in identifying it. It's weird, Andy, and I have a very similar story. It started with trauma issues with my dad and the relationships early on in childhood. But I mean, that voice, whether it's the subconscious voice or our active voice, would you say that that's really the end way or the pathway to changing or reaching the realm of belief, if you will, the deep-seated inner belief that's down here?
Absolutely, for me, and I do love the question why. I do also think it's very important. This is why I absolutely love language, and I think the resolve of everything comes back to language. Language is the key. How we talk to ourselves, not only how we talk to ourselves, how we ask ourselves questions. Not only how we ask ourselves questions, what's the vocabulary we're using? What's the intonation that we're using? And when we ask ourselves why, I love the question why, and it's also hilarious because sometimes you have to be careful with the question why. If you think, why am I such a jerk? Whew, that's such a long list that it might generate. Why is this important to me? That's a different list. So why, and then whatever other words you're adding to that are truly important. And I know I did step away for that question, Zach. And you asked it to me. I'm terribly sorry. I forgot how you exactly asked it. Oh, the
Right.
subconscious.
The voice
Is
leading
that the
to
access point?
the
Yes.
deep-seated beliefs, right? The foundational beliefs
Yes.
of our being. Because as you said in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, so many people struggle with that imposter syndrome when they're trying to change where they're headed, when they're trying to change their self-talk. Because for a long time, personally, I felt like I was just taking my head and beating it against a wall over and over and over. Because, as you said, that voice is going, that's not really you. That's not who you are. You've always not done what you said you were going to do, or whatever that belief system we're trying to change is.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when there's a critical voice. When it comes to subconscious, that is the opening. That is the best way that you're going to get change. But also, it has to be in a way that is good for you, that works for you. So there's a variety of breathing techniques. There's hypnosis. There's inner child work. There's journaling work. There's so many different access points, and whatever works for people, that's great. I find that I like to consider them tools in a toolbox. I got lots of things. Which one is going to work with me today? And in being able to have that conversation, but also when you're with somebody, and the work that I do, we often say it's hard to be the driver and the passenger at the same time. If you're trying to have this conversation with yourself and navigate the entire inner world that you're coming up with, that can be really hard. So when I'm working with clients, technically, I am the driver only to help keep them on the path of this is where we're going. And they're the passenger, as in they don't have to worry about all these other pieces. I got that. Let's just focus on you. And when that critical voice comes up, who is it? There's lots of different people that impacted us. What's the tone that they're using? What's the intention in their words? How is it making you feel? And then how do we start to reframe it? So that way, that part of you, that whether it's a younger version or a memory, whatever you'd like to call it, ultimately, there's a moment of you that's captured in this moment. How do we get you out? How do we make sure you're safe? What do you want to see happen? And being able to do that is incredible. if I could explain to you the amount of profound shifts that not only I've experienced personally, but that I've walked my clients through, these ahas, these downloads, these epiphanies, that's where the magic is getting that shift. And as you keep doing that, your internal voice of that support, that encouragement, that confidence, that ongoing positive one that we like gets stronger and stronger. And that critical voice gets diminished and more diminished. And then it becomes, as you're living your life, oh, I know that voice. I recognize that voice. I don't have to pay attention to that. I know you're just a signal. It's okay. Just like a signal on your dashboard. So they still come up, but now you can manage it. And that's the best part.
So my talking about tools in a toolbox. One of the tools that I used that really helped me out was to sit at a computer and type out. I think I had about 20 affirmations, I am statements, if you will, that I typed out and printed on a piece of paper and taped it to the mirror of my bathroom. Anytime I was in the bathroom, whether it's getting ready for my day in the morning or other times during the day, before I left the bathroom, I was saying those affirmations out loud. Mm-hmm. And the number I've heard is 66 days to change a belief about something, whether it's yourself or something else, or you're picking up a skill or a talent kind of thing, that it takes 66 days for that to get flipped or ingrained, that it's now a new belief or skill or talent about yourself. After doing that for I did it much longer than 2 months, but that's probably the biggest tool, or the tool with the biggest impact for myself in changing those limiting beliefs that I had about myself back in the day. So how powerful is affirmations for what you've seen in your practice for clients?
I like to do questioning affirmations, which is you ask yourself a question such as, why am I able to notice more and more that I'm so loved? Why am I able to notice more and more that things are becoming easier and easier for me? And because we are a question and answering machine, we are the original Google search, it's nice to be able to give your brain a question and then it'll generate its own reasons for it. So that's really, really wonderful. Affirmations are, for sure, they're great, and I absolutely use them. There was a point in time where when I would say mine, it basically told me that I was full of baloney. So they were not having that same impact on me, even though I would say them and however I would say them. So I really think it is very personable and personal how people go about wanting to navigate their own inner world. Affirmations can be a phenomenal source. I know a colleague of mine, he had massive shifts by listening to audios on YouTube in the evening. And that was for him. Great. If that works for you, put it in your toolbox and keep going and hold on to it and make sure you remember this works for me and keep at it. Because I think that take care of that tool because it's going to continue to serve you the more you care for it.
Oh.
How about you guys? Zach, what's your favorite tool to use?
Well, I actually love that take on the question affirmations. I've never even thought about that or breached that. But again, always asking the question why, because it creates a conversation within yourself instead of just telling, right? In the sales world, I teach people statements push, questions pull, right? So if you ask your subconscious why you're noticing that, your subconscious technically is saying that just like a client would say what you're trying to lead them to make the best decision for. I love that, actually. But no, it's been a lot of Think Inc., right? I write down goals and affirmations twice a day. I use a old school paper planner and a pen. I joke with people I was born in the wrong generation when it comes to technology and everything. I prefer paper, pen, and a corded phone if I'm being real. That's why Andy and I are such good friends, probably. But
Well, I mean, he's an old soul. I recognize
yeah,
that right off.
but
I mean,
no,
we're about
it,
40 years age in difference,
yeah.
but you wouldn't know it from our
Well,
conversations.
it's my brain goes a million miles an hour, 18 different directions. So, like for example, when I sit down, if I watch a movie on Netflix, something that subtitles have to be on for me to be able to pay attention, it's the words. So just saying something sometimes doesn't really drill that in. So writing it down in your brain, processing, stroking those letters out has really made the difference because I tried just saying them, kind of, but no, writing them down and then start implementing those questions as well. Again, I love that. I'm intrigued by that.
Thank you. I actually I emailed Andy, so for the listeners, I put in the free book that I have created, and it's called The Power of Words. And in that, I talk about questioning affirmations, and I give 2 pages worth of questioning affirmations. So
Awesome.
they're right there for you, Zach.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'll get those over to you, Zach. We'll put it on the post for this episode on my website too, so that
Awesome.
people can download them.
Definitely. And it's, and it's an ongoing process of wanting more and wanting better things for yourself. And especially, I love that you mentioned about the authority. When we are the authority to ourselves, and okay, we're going to get up at 6 o'clock and we're going to do this,
That's a
you naturally, yeah,
perfect lead into our next
Right.
question, Zach.
naturally you're rebellious to your own
Yeah.
authority. So how else? And I love the word self love, and it was one that I've really explored because our culture would have you think self love is a candle and a bubble bath, and then you're good to go, and that's not it. Self love is taking care of yourself, how you quite literally care for yourself, your self talk, how you also do things, how you care about your home, how you care about your
Yeah.
body, how you care about the nutrition you eat. And then also, sometimes, yes, it is tough love of, okay, I know you're tired, but we need to push right now, and then we'll take a break. Or, you know what? You need to take a break because you're pushing way too hard. And being able to know
Mhm.
yourself well enough that says, yes, I can push, or no, I need a break.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the hallmarks of self leadership, which is what this podcast is all
Right.
about.
I mean, it's the same as working a muscle. It's,
Mhm.
in the health and fitness, the bodybuilding world, that was my original, what I thought was going to be my career. And then I didn't like the big box corporate world. But, you can overtrain where you're actually losing muscle mass versus building it, taking time off. I love that
Mhm.
because those correlate very well.
Very much so. That's a great
Mhm.
point. Yeah, definitely. Love
Mhm.
self leadership. Right up there. It's quite literally self love,
So,
just with a different label.
so Lenora, in your eyes, what is the dynamic between belief, confidence, and mindset? So for
Hmm.
me, well, I'll talk from my perspective, and I'll let you chime in. So belief is kind of the starting point. It's kind of the fuel in the gas tank, so to speak, right? That then enables you to have some confidence about yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
To want more for yourself, to say, okay, I've got positive affirmations in the talk that's in my head. I have a strong belief that I'm capable of doing things in this world, in this life. And because of that, now I have some confidence in myself. Maybe not full confidence, but maybe it's 50, 60, 70% enough to get me going. And that then creates an environment for ourselves that we can develop a mindset to say, hey, I want to grow into the person I was created to be. I want to have an impact in this world. I want to understand the world better and where I can kind of fit in because I have kind of a why for myself now. I have a belief in myself. I've kind of thrown off all the crumbs that are on me that was the bad belief about myself. I'm kind of, I fell off the horse and I'm dusting myself off and I'm getting back on the horse and now I've got confidence that I can ride this horse into the prairie, and I've got this mindset that I'm going to go be an adventurer and go out into the world and see what the world's about and understand it better, or where I can make an impact. And to me, that's the dynamic between those three. But it all starts with the belief, because if you don't have that fuel, so to speak, in the fuel tank, then the confidence and the mindset and everything else is not going to come.
Yeah, I love the way that you said that, right off into the sunset across the field. Great visual. For me, I think confidence is something, if you think about it, when are you confident? If you have to go and do something big, are you confident before it, or are you confident after it's done? So when I think of confidence, I often think of, I just want to be less afraid, because I'm not going to be confident until after I know. So even with the TEDx that I did, there was a period of time going up to it that you're nervous and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. And then there's this ongoing battle of, yes, I can. No, I can't. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And what's the weight of it? Is it 70% yes and 30% no? That's pretty good. Good. Let's keep going in that direction. Now that it's done, it's a completely different, the action has now been fully completed. Now it's a different level of confidence. So going in, if you're thinking, I want to be less afraid, that's movement forward. You might not have the confidence until after you're done, or even if you have a smidgen more than your level of fear, you're in the right area, and keep going little by little. And it's natural for us to have this fear. And we often think, oh man, I wish I was fearless. I wish I didn't have all this fear. And it's okay. We're human. We're designed that way. And if we can understand, oh, this is my programming. I've been designed this way. Okay, I'm very, very normal. Oh, and quite actually, I'm functioning really well. Great. I have this fear. How do I work with it? How can I use it to be my friend? How can I use it to harness it in the right direction so I can keep going, so that I can ride across the field on my horse feeling much, much better?
And I mean, working on those things so somebody takes from where they are to build the life they truly want, whatever that may look like. I mean, you would say that it's a non-negotiable then, that we've got to work on first our belief, mindset, our intentions, that whole creation cycle for the life that we want.
Completely. And how, if I also think, how you think it's going to look and how you think you're going to get there, that's not the way it's going. What your destination may look very, very similar to what you want. How you're going to get there, stop trying to figure out the how, because it's not going to be very clear. And there's an amazing quote, and it's from a book called The Boy, the Horse, the Fox, and the Mole. And in this book, it's absolutely stunning. It's one of my favorites. And it says, the boy says to the horse, I can't see a way through. And the horse says, can you see the next step? He says, yes. The horse says, and just do that. I think that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think my mom had a figurine from that story. I don't think we have it anymore, but
it's close by, guys. I know for sure. It's somewhere over here.
The four animals stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. Great book.
But I think that's where we're trying to end up with this conversation for folks, is to say, keep going. If you could see yourself creating, I had a sign. Zach's heard me talk about this many times. I had a sign in my office when I was at Boeing that said, "To predict the best way to predict the future is to create it." Mm-hmm. And I wanted that staring all the time at people that would come into my office, and we'd have conversations and so forth, to say, yeah, the future is unknown. We don't know exactly. There's some risk to the future. We don't know exactly how we're going to get there, but you can create an environment for yourself that you're gonna reduce the risk that you're not going to get the life that you want for yourself by just keep going, have that vision for what you want your life to be, and keep working on it, because it's not a light switch.
Very much so.
Right.
I love that. It's not a light switch.
We've talked a lot on this podcast about the be do have model, that I use in my coaching about the that very complex engineering formula of x plus y equals z, and where do you plug in those three words. And I think a lot of what we've talked about today is this sort of the tools of the self-leadership path in working on the B part of that. This is who I want to be in the world. And right now my being is a being that says I'm not good enough. You know, I've got traumas in my life and it's given me negative self-talk, and that's who I'm being in the world right now. And I don't want to be that way in the world. I want to be positive. I want to be a human being that has self-love, that has that kind of program out there where I'm working the different parts, the physical part, the mental part, the spiritual part of our lives, the energy part. We probably sit here for an hour and talk about all the different parts and the complexity of life, but can you see that as a program? And I need to build a program for myself that's going to get rid of this negative self-talk and get the right beliefs and mindset and confidence and everything else that can then allow me to get on that horse and ride into the prairie and go out on an adventure that's called life, not knowing exactly how it's going to happen, but I'm going to keep going and see what life has to offer me and start working for me from that perspective. So, Lenora, unfortunately, our time's coming to a close.
I feel
Zach
like
and I
this
would
is one
sit
of the
here and
fastest
say,
podcasts we've ever recorded.
well, that's because we're talking
Great.
about our favorite subject,
I know.
and this is stuff Zach and I would sit on my back porch with a bourbon and talk about all the time.
It's stuff I coach my people
And
on
that's how-
all the time.
And this
we
is-
could do a 4-hour long
this-
episode on this.
Yeah,
That sounds amazing. We'll do a series.
this is how this podcast got started. It was over a glass of
call it
bourbon.
Bourbon
talking
and
about how we're going to
Business.
make bourbon in business. How we're going to make
We
an
actually have
impact in the
T-shirts,
world.
Bourbon in, Wisdom out. It works. So
Yeah, it works.
Oh my God, I love that.
The bourbon in and wisdom out. Yeah. So if people wanted to reach out to you, learn more about your business, about you as a person, or get a copy of the ebook and those type things, what's the best way they could reach out to you?
Best way to reach out to me is on my website. It's dtbhorizons.com, and it stands for Determined to Be Horizons.
Determined to be.
love that.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was amazing talking to
Well-
you. If you want to do a series, let me know.
Well, we're toying with the notion of doing like some panels, bringing a panel of experts together and throw a subject out on the table for an hour and see what comes out.
That sounds like a great idea.
So we've got one last question for you.
One more. The question.
The question.
So-
And that question, Lenora, is, since we're running out of time for you, what do the words generate your value mean to you?
Generate your value means to me whatever is important to you, create that.
Boom.
Short and sweet.
So
We've had some folks go on for 5
know.
minutes. Because it means different things to different people, right? That's the
Absolutely.
That's the reason why we keep asking the question, because everybody's a unique individual and those words have different meanings. But
Very much so.
well,
Language is incredible.
Yep.
Lenora,
Very
this
cool.
was fantastic. So appreciate you so much
It
joining
was.
us today.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. It was wonderful talking with you guys.
And this episode will come out in mid-January, but we're recording this before the holidays. So Lenora, have a great holiday season. Great to see you,
Yes.
Zach,
As always.
as always. Minus the glasses, and I'm talk about searing stuff. I'm gonna have to sear a new image in my brain now of Zach without
It
glasses.
seems like changed my whole face shape. but-
Since I've known the boy, he's had glasses
Right.
on. So this is like this is all new to me.
Well, I feel like that's our whole podcast. The Generate Your Value podcast is kind of like LASIK for your life, so you can paint a clearer vision of who you want to be and create that life you want.
Ooh, wow! It just dropped a bomb.
Yeah,
Just
he
dropped
did.
a bomb.
That was
Tweet
excellent.
that. Go ahead, tweet that.
Excellent.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. Have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you next week with another great guest like Lenora. And can't thank you enough for taking that valuable resource that's limited in your life called time to spend with us here on the Generate Your Value podcast. Take care.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Generate Your Value podcast. If you find our conversations to be useful in your life, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode.
You can find me online at Instagram at _Zach.Levy, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
For information on my coaching services, visit my website at www.generateyourvalue.com. You can also find me and my company on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Simply search for Generate Your Value on those platforms.
Once again, thanks for joining us for today's podcast, and we invite you to generate your value in this world.